Advanced Algebra 2B. These are your algebra review notes for Monday, October 1st. Go ahead and make sure you put the title on your notes so that we know which ones they are when you get them graded. So today in class we talked about graphing parabolas, and we did the little Angry Birds activity. And in class we figured out that changing the number in front of the x squared, this coefficient, makes the graph wider or skinnier. We also figured out that the middle coefficient, the coefficient of just plain x, moves it left or right. The coefficient, or the constant term, moves the graph up or down. Now, just to make sure that we're clear on our vocabulary, the equation itself is called a quadratic, but the graph, the thing that we actually look at, is called a parabola. So those are two different vocabulary words. The equation is called a quadratic, the graph is called a parabola. So, for example, if we saw y equals negative 2x squared plus 3x minus 5, the negative sign would make the parabola go down, the 2 would make it skinnier, and then the plus 3x right here, that 3 would make it move to the right, and the negative 5 would make it go down. So that's it for notes. If you were in class today, you just need to have these notes copied down on your paper. If you were not in class, just a little recap of what we did, and maybe actually even if you were in class but you struggled a little bit with the assignment. So I gave you guys in class a worksheet. By the way, the PDF of this will be posted on the blog, so if you were absent, you're going to need to print this off. And the goal was to shoot an angry bird from somewhere on this side of the paper all the way over, miss the obstacles, and kill the pig, just like the Angry Birds game. Now, to do this, we played around in our graphing calculator a little bit. So first we set our window. If you weren't in class today, you're going to want to set your window. So that's negative 2 for the x-min, 24 the x-max, 5 for the scale, negative 2, 19, and 5. After you set your window, you go to your y equals, and now we're going to start making some guesses and checks as to what we can do to kill the pig. So for my first guess, I'm going to plug in just regular x squared. Notice if I do this that my parabola isn't going in the right direction. So I'm going to make it a negative x squared. Now when I do that, the parabola is going upside down, but I need to shift this graph up. To do that, the notes told us that just adding a constant onto the end will make it shift up. So I'm going to go ahead and make this go up 10. That was just a guess. I didn't really know how much to make it go up. Now, the notes told us that by putting a number in front of the x squared, we can make it wider or skinnier. So if, for example, I insert a 2, make it negative 2x squared, notice the graph got skinnier. So the bigger the number is, the skinnier it's going to get. And if I make this 0.2, then it gets wider. And the smaller the decimal is, the wider it's going to get. So I could make it 0.02, and it would get even wider. Now this actually looks not too shabby for me being able to hit the pig, except that I need to miss these obstacles. And maybe actually I landed on one that already works. So to check it, I would go into my graphing calculator's table, hitting second and then graph to get to the table. And then I would plot some of these points to see if I'm actually missing the obstacles and still hitting the pig. Now, I'm worried about this obstacle, so I don't know if you guys can see very well, but this is over 15. So I'm going to scroll down on my table and look and see how high 15 is. 15 is at 5.5. So if I'm going to graph this, I go over 15, I go up, there's 5, there's 6, so 5.5 is about right here. And if I were to put that point there, it misses that obstacle, which is good. I'm still kind of worried about in here. Let's see what happens at 12, how about? So again, I look at my graphing calculator, I go to 12, and it's at 7, a little more than 7. So I go over to 12, here's up 6. Oh, up a little more than 7 puts me in the middle of that obstacle. So this graph didn't quite work. So now I can play with it a little bit more. I can maybe make this a little bit less wide, so I'm going to make it 0.1. And I'm going to introduce an x term, so like plus x. Okay, this is going to shift it to the right just a little bit. So notice if I graph it, it's not quite as wide as it was before, but the point, the vertex, is shifted over just a little bit. Now for missing my obstacles, I'm not quite, the pig on this graph would be over here, so I need to make this come over farther. I can either make it wider or I can make it go up. I'm going to make it go up because I know that there's this obstacle up here that I'm going to have to get over. So I'm going to make this 13. That looks pretty good, but it still doesn't quite get far enough to hit the pig in the corner. So I'm going to make it go up 15. Darn it, and I'm starting to run out of room on top here. I'm going to go off the paper. One of the requirements of the homework tonight was that you didn't go off the paper. So now I'm going to have to make my graph wider. I know I can make it wider by making this number change. So instead of 0.1, let's see, I'm going to make it 0.15. It's a little bit bigger, right? I hit graph. Oh, it got just a little bit wider, but not much. Maybe 0.25? Oh wait, wider is smaller. I need to get smaller. 0.05. Ooh, that got a lot wider, but a little bit too much. Maybe 0.08. Notice I'm just guessing and checking here. I'm just playing with the graph a little bit. Oh, that gets pretty close. Let's see. So to hit the pig, I just need to go a little bit wider. So instead of 0.08, maybe 0.09 will do the trick. Oh, just a little wider. Maybe let's see, 10? Well, I already did that and that didn't quite work, did it? Oh, maybe. Not quite enough. 13 maybe? Shoot, you know what I keep forgetting, because I'm not writing these down, is that the bigger the number it gets, the skinnier it's getting. So I need to make this like less than. I need to get smaller here. So 0.03. There we go. That's getting closer, kind of, except it's too wide. 0.04. I was going in the wrong direction. Not quite. 0.05. Not quite. How about 0.06? Ooh, this is really close. Now I'm just kind of going off the top here, so I need to move it down just a smidge. And maybe I'll make this 0.0, well, let's see what 0.07 does. Oh man, that looks good. So now this looks like the right one. So again, I'm going to go to my table. And what I would do, and what I want you guys to do, is to plot every single one of these points. So you'd go over 0, up 15, put a point. Over 1, up a little bit more than almost 16, put a point. Over 2, you guys get the idea? So that you would be doing graph all of your points all the way until that you see that you actually did hit the pig. Okay? So if you're gone today, that's your goal. Your goal is to print this off at home or maybe at school, and then you're going to play guessing and checking on this until you get a parabola that misses all the obstacles and hits the pig. Thank you, and have a good night, guys.